Hello. So down to the next part. I'm thinking since everyone's in quarantine and we've got nothing else to do, I may as well just carry on with this stuff, to be honest. So, moving forwards with the with the Scorched Earth, I'm nearly finished with the rule set for it. I'm currently writing a role-playing engine to go with the Scorched Earth, and it's almost finished. I'm basically at the very annoying part of filling out the equipment list at the moment. So all of the technical rules are there. So the engine, the combat engine's there. How you roll, well, all your role-playing stuff is there. And how you play the game is there. Basically, all that's left is to populate it with, spells and equipment and things like that. So yeah, that's going to be a task over the next couple of days. Hopefully, it'll be done by Sunday, and that will mean that we can move forward with doing a role-playing campaign set in the Scorched Earth, which would be really cool moving forward. So, just 1 second. So yeah, today we're going to be covering two things. Well, one actually, and it's going to be quite a short one. It's the blood of the gods. So this has been a question that's come up quite a bit in the comments. There's been, what about the god blood? Who has the god blood? What does it do? How does it work? It's been mentioned quite a few times. Well, in this section, we're going to find out just what the god blood is and how it works and things. So, there we go. And this is straight from the guide. The blood of the gods. The only respite against the Reaper Plague, the bloodline of Olympus and beyond. The blood of the gods, or god blood, runs through the veins of very few mortals to this day. Those that have the god blood within them are not immune to the Reaper Plague. Whilst the god blood would render them all but immortal, the Reaper Plague eventually takes a god-blooded after a few centuries sometimes. So, for instance, the reason why the Roman Empire was so successful in its early stages, and even to this day, is the fact that they have a great continuity of government. So their upper classes are mostly, if they're not god-blooded, they have god blood in them, because they had god-blooded in their families down their lines. They live a little bit longer. And their emperors are pure god-blooded. So these are people who only marry with, people from different who are also god-blooded, if you know what I mean. Even if it's really weak god-blood, So, the emperors of the Roman Empire tend to live for quite a long time, which just gives them, again, a really good continuity of government. What you don't see with the Roman Empire is a year of 5 emperors and things like that. You don't see things like you do in the real Roman Empire, where emperors are, die very, very, very quickly. No, emperors tend, if they're not assassinated or killed on the battlefield, they live for a very long time, and so their rulership is very, very important and long-reaching. So, the god blood was a gift of the gods to the judges, changing them from mere mortal to something between mortal and god, or demigods, if you want to go down that route. With the onset of Artemis leading the Dragomachy, the judges developed the feat of dragotheosis, or the act of turning oneself into a dragon. Whilst in this form, the judges could only be stopped by the gods themselves, and even then, just barely. With their sheer numbers, the war in the sky boiled the world. So that was the Dragomachy that we discovered a few weeks ago. So in the pictures of this session, you'll be seeing different god-blooded over the years, and these are figures that I'm not going to name now, but who will have names as we move on. It'd be really cool if you can go back to this video and try and pick out who is who when we describe people later in the history of the world. So, in the centuries after the final death of Artemis, the judges lost their immortality. Instead, they would only live for an extended period, as discussed earlier, but they would also lose the ability of dragotheosis entirely. That's a lost art, people can't do that anymore. Their bloodlines would create the most enduring royal lines of the Scorched Earth as it rose into the age of mortals. The emperors of the Roman Empire were descended from Remus, one of the judges of the Dragomachy, and to some degree that bloodline still holds the throne to this day. The Roman bloodline of Godblood is but one example of this lineage taking control of a major state Wherever the Godblood settled, power soon followed in its wake. So a lot of the big emperors and kings and things like that, they are God-blooded because they live for a long time, and they're also very, very, very mighty, as we're about to find out in a second. So, as well as longer life, the God-blooded also share many characteristics with others of their own line. Almost every member of the family will have the same vibrant coloured eyes, very similar facial features, and even the same scars. Alright? Whenever a mother or father receives a scar, any child born of their union after this point will also be born with that scar, which will grow into their skin as they age. A very strange phenomenon there. No one quite knows where it comes from. The fact of the matter is, you know, the God-blooded are something apart. They are human, but they are something apart. These are demigods, but thinking back to it, these are not the demigods that used to walk the earth. So the Scorched Earth used to be home to people who could literally break mountains by looking at them. That's how powerful the judges were. The God-blooded these days are nowhere near that powerful. They're just simply very mighty in personal combat. They have very good intellects. They tend to grow larger than most people. Not all, but, you know, if the average height is around 6 foot, which it isn't, but if the average height was around 6 foot, God-blooded would be around 6'1", 6'2", you know? And they'll be very well built, very healthy. It's the God-blood, right? So these are very, very, very mighty people. Alright. God-blooded age normally. They just remained around 30 to 50 for many, many decades before finally aging once more. Powers of the Stormblood within a God-blooded are also heightened, but Stormblooded who also have the God-blood are thought to age rapidly, and so are at much greater risk of madness thanks to their condition. So obviously, the older a mage gets, the older somebody who can use magical powers all the time gets, as we discussed earlier, their minds tend to break after a while. As such, a primal, as the Inquisition calls them, must be hunted down and exterminated at almost any cost. A God-blooded who has succumbed to madness could summon an entire ether storm with the flick of a wrist. So God-blooded who are also very powerful in the Stormblood, they are hunted down by the Inquisition and killed. They're not even given the chance to become marked ones or mages who are leashed to Stormglaives. These are people who are just outright murdered because they're too dangerous to let live, quite frankly. Which is a shame, but it is what it is. This has not always been a thing. As we will get into the history of the Scorched Earth later, the Emperor Diocletian, all the way up until the Emperor Diocletian, so about for 4 centuries, the Roman Empire have been very tolerant of mages, had been very open to mages holding office, and they've been passing very progressive laws in terms of mages for a long time. It was Diocletian, who is a God-blooded, obviously, because he is an emperor. It was under him that the empire almost collapsed and lost most of its territory due to a great magical cataclysm, which we will come to when we get into the history of the Earth. But that is one of the main reasons why God-blooded, who are also very, very powerful in the Stormblood, are killed. You know, the physical prowess of God-blooded is also heightened by their blood, as I discussed before. Their speed and reflexes are much akin to the marked ones in terms of sheer power, which, as we've already discussed, is very powerful indeed. In fact, many God-blooded simply outstrip those of the marked ones in terms of sheer raw physical talent. Their might is a natural extension of their family line, rather than a curse hoisted upon them by the ether storms. So, the marked ones are actually they're forced to have these powers. You know, they're sort of unstable in a way, in the way that they get their powers from the ether storms. Whereas the God-blooded, it's natural inborn talent. All right, there's a natural inborn genetic talent that they have, which is seen as a better form of skill and prowess, strength. Today, God-blooded are extremely rare, and those that may exist do so in a much diminished form. No longer do they resemble Achilles, burning across a battlefield and slaying hundreds. Instead, they are wonders in their own time, living for longer than almost any other mortal, and doing whatever they can with their gifts to make sure that their lives are remembered long after they are gone. So, again, the days of Achilles, as I just said there, bursting across the battlefield and slaying all in his wake, you know, with dragons at his beck and call. Yeah, those days are long gone. All right, the God-blooded are no longer like this. They're very mighty, you know. And for instance, if you see a Genghis Khan type figure in the setting, they'll most likely be God-blooded, you know. If you see an Alexander the Great type figure in the setting, or Arthur, for instance, most likely God-blooded. Yeah, they will have something about them. The best characters in the setting will not be God-blooded, though. In the book that I am writing, the God-blooded aren't really figuring in it at all. So, and I would actually caution against people to make God-blooded characters in the game as well. There are rules to do that, but people will be absolutely terrified of you, and they will generally put you on thrones and go, "Look, it's the guy," right? And that may make you a very big target for other people. Unless you are protected God-blooded, unless you are an emperor or a king or something like that, God-blooded tends not to last for very long because people are afraid of them. And this is a very dogmatic setting where people do not like the gods. And if you have something called the God-blood, well, you know, not going to end that well for you. So that was the God-blooded. And that's it. Basically, that's it for the God-blood. I told you it'd be a short one. Next time, though, we'll be going into the races of the Scorched Earth. So this is going to take... These ones are going to take quite a long time to do. Okay, so I'm thinking before we jump into the races, I might jump into the timeline just to give you a rough overview of how the years work, how things like that work, and the ages and things. And it'll only be very short, that video. And then we'll jump into the much longer videos of the races of the Scorched Earth. So we've got the Falkyr, the Sunborn, the Logia, the Achaeans, the Elves, the Dwayor, and the Asunder. So those are the races that are in the setting. All of them are humanoid, okay, so they're all basically humans, or elves. So nothing to worry about in terms of spider people walking around or anything. So, thanks very much for watching, and next time we'll be going over the chronological order of years, and after that we'll be doing the Falkyr, which is also cheers. Speak to you later.